Welcome everyone to Living and Learning from in the Kitchen with Justine. I'm Justine. And today we're talking about springing into flavor because we've reached spring and finally the weather is starting to warm up. The sun's coming out. So welcome everyone. And I also just want to take a moment to thank our funders, just because without them, we wouldn't be able to bring programs like this, either online or in person. So we're really grateful for their support, and they fund a lot of our activities here at Rose of Sharon. So we're very grateful. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about a few helpful hints. I just wanted to incorporate, some new things into the programming, and also just say that, I want to make sure you're getting what you need out of these programs and learning what you want to learn. And so at the end, there's a chance to answer some questions. So let me know if there's something that you want to learn about, and I will incorporate it into the next, either the next one or the one after presentation. So stay tuned for that. So we'll just get started. So here's just a few helpful hints that, can help you in the kitchen. For first one is keeping potatoes from browning. So, if you want to get things ready ahead of time, peeling the potatoes, you can put them in cold water and cover them completely to prevent them from browning or turning gray. And then this helps, that helps the starch from not being oxidized in the air. And that's what turns the color. So just making sure they're completely covered. So if you're getting them ready ahead of time, it's just a great way to keep them fresh. Also, what I do before cooking them is just give them a rinse, because sometimes they're sitting in that water and all that starch is being released. So just give them a rinse before cooking. And then with bananas too, you buy a nice big bunch of, barely ripe bananas and all of a sudden they're brown. So keeping them fresher for longer, you can wrap the end of the bunch, the top stalks with plastic wrap, or even cloth works as well. And that blocks the ethylene gases from releasing out of the stem, which makes them ripen too fast. The other thing you can do with bananas, if they're getting too ripe, you can put them in the freezer on a tray with parchment paper and just cut them into little slices and then freeze them on the tray and then pop them into baggies. So they're really good for smoothies, or making like banana ice cream with a blender. But we'll be talking about some smoothies in a moment. And then brown sugar, you get brown sugar and you don't go through it as fast as you'd like to, and it gets hard. So you can toss an orange peel in there or a slice of apple in an airtight container. And then you can also, if you're in a hurry, you can, dig it out and put it in the microwave and have a little jar of water next to it. And then the moisture will help when you're not cooking it, but warming it. The moisture from the water will help to break up the block of sugar. Another thing, if you've boiled eggs and you've had them in the fridge for a while, and you don't know if they're still good, you can test them. So you can place your uncooked eggs in a bowl of cold water, and if the egg sinks to the bottom, it's ready to eat. It's a-okay. If it floats, it's no longer edible. So that's a good way to, because sometimes you make stuff and you don't remember how long it's been in the fridge. So yeah. So the floatier, it's a no-no to eat. All right, so I'll share some more next round, but it's just a little start to a change in the program. So we're into spring, so in wintertime, having smoothies in the morning or in the afternoon even, you don't always feel like it because it's cold outside. But in spring, it's a really good time to, change it up, get more nutrients, and just get more nutrition. And blueberries are a great way to do that. So this is a recipe for a blueberry smoothie. And obviously you need a blender for this, or one of those handheld blenders. They work as well. So this recipe calls for a cup of milk of choice. So if you have a dairy intolerance or a lactose intolerance, you could use milks like coconut milk or oat milk. There's so many different ones, almond milk, soy milk. so there's a lot of variety. So you can choose which milk you want. A cup of frozen blueberries, a small banana frozen, or like I say, if you've frozen little chunks, just like a handful of the banana chunks frozen, makes it nice and creamy. And then 2 tablespoons of nut butter of choice. So obviously, if you have a nut allergy, you could use sun butter. It just adds a little bit more protein, so the smoothie is a bit more satiating. And then half a small avocado. Same with avocados, you could freeze those ahead of time as well. If, sometimes they get ripened and they go bad fairly quickly. So you could do those on a sheet pan and freeze them and put them in baggies once they're frozen. So then you want to pop everything in the blender and then blend on low until it gains traction and then turn it to a high speed. If it sort of starts revving and it's not moving, it might need to be scraped. So you have to turn it off and scrape the sides down. You might need to add a little bit more milk or water depending on the consistency you want. And once it's completely smooth, you can pour it into a glass and enjoy. What I liked to do with toddlers is and they can help you with all of this as well. They love to help. Is make them into popsicles. So on a warm day rather, they can have a little snack and they're getting all this nutrition and they can have it in a popsicle form. So it's fun. It's a fun little treat. Yeah, so you can have a smoothie for breakfast or, in the afternoon if you get like a bit of a lull and you're feeling tired. This is a really good pick-me-up because a lot of times in the afternoon what happens is your blood sugar drops. So this is a good way to, raise it up, but not too much with a little bit of the protein from the nut butter or the avocado as well. So that's one recipe. And then this is probably one of my favorite recipes, especially for kids. It's called the chocolate monkey smoothie. And same thing, it's a cup of your milk of choice or water. You can actually just use water as well. And your frozen banana chunks, and then a tablespoon of your nut butter of choice, of course, and then 1 to 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. So this one I wouldn't do too late in the day because of the cocoa does contain a little bit of caffeine, and it might keep your kids up later at night. But early after mornings or early afternoon is fine. And then obviously, like I said, you can use your nut butter of choice and your dairy or plant-based milks. And then also in any smoothie, you can add in chia or flax seeds for extra fiber. So if your child or yourself are getting a bit constipated, you can add those things in and it will help to move things through. That's what those fibers do. They help, soak up the water that you're drinking and make sure you drink plenty of water when you're adding those things in. And then it helps to flush out toxins and all the things that need to keep moving through your system that we don't need. So once again, pop everything in the blender, blend on low until it gains traction, and then scrape the sides if you need, or add more liquid if you need. And then just pour it into a glass and enjoy. And then this one too, you could make into a popsicle. It'd be like a little chocolate fudgicle, but a healthy version. So give that a try. Let me know how that is. If your kids or you like it, I love to hear feedback, by the way. This is an alternative to a smoothie. You can make a smoothie bowl. So then, you can really add extra toppings. Kids love to make these because, they get to decorate and you can put all kinds of things like little chia seeds or hemp seeds, or you can add nuts to the top, your blueberries, strawberries, bananas, whatever you have on hand. Like, you always use what you have on hand. You can always make substitutions. So this recipe calls for a frozen banana. Once again, same thing, you can use the chunks if you've frozen those ahead of time. 1.5 cups of frozen strawberries, a half a cup of your milk of choice, and a half a small avocado. Avocado is optional. You don't need to add that, but it adds a little bit of the healthy fats. Plus, it also has some protein. And And yeah, so you can add your, like I say, your fresh strawberries or blueberries, bananas, whatever you have on hand. You can also use dried fruits, like if you have dried cranberries or dried blueberries, whatever you have. You can also add things like granola. Granola is a great way to just get more fiber and add more crunch to it if you like a crunch. Or you can just make this as a plain strawberry banana smoothie. So same thing in your blender, you want to combine your frozen banana, frozen strawberries, and milk of choice, puree until it's completely smooth. The mixture should be thick. So if it's too thin, then you could add more frozen bananas or frozen strawberries to thicken it up more. Depends on what your blender is capable of doing as well. And add more liquid if it gets too thick that you can't blend it. And pop it in a bowl and add all your toppings. So that's a really yummy recipe. You could also make this into a a popsicle as well. And you can make a variety of popsicles whenever you make one of these. If you have extra, just make it into if you have a popsicle maker, just make it into that and then just keep adding different ones. And then you'll have a variety of flavors for snack time for your little ones or for yourself. And I like this recipe. These are more breakfasty recipes, but this is a cinnamon bun oatmeal that is delicious, but also very healthy, really high in fiber. So it's just a cup of milk, half a cup of quick cooking oats, but not instant oats. That will make it kind of too sludgy. A half a small ripe banana mashed, a tablespoon of chia, flax, or hemp seeds. That's optional. You don't have to add those, especially if you have a picky child. But it is a great way to add more fiber, especially if they get constipated or have trouble going to the bathroom. A half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a pinch of sea salt. And then the topping is maple syrup, ground cinnamon, and then you can add some Greek yogurt, vanilla Greek yogurt, and pecans on top. So it adds a little extra protein, keeps them fuller for longer. So in a small pot, you want to heat your milk over a medium heat, and just be careful with milk. You want to keep stirring it because it will burn very quickly. And then once it's barely simmering, you want to reduce the heat to low. Add your oats, your banana, chia if you're using, cinnamon and salt, and cook it and stir for 3 minutes until it reaches the desired consistency. And then take it off the heat and spoon into your bowls. And then add your combined maple syrup, cinnamon, drizzle that mixture with yogurt over your oatmeal and top with chopped pecans. And obviously, if you have a nut allergy, you could use different things like not sesame, well, you could use sesame seeds, but that might not taste the best. Like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds also can help add the fiber as well. Yeah, so give that a try and let me know how it goes. And a lot of these recipes, please take pictures of them if you like, and you can create folders with recipes from these ones that I share. And you can also search up other ones that you like. If you like the sound of something, but it doesn't quite fit with what you like, you can also Google different recipes. There's so many online. Next, we have this is something I make every week. They're just a very easy breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Actually, you can just pair them with different things. They're egg bites, and they're absolutely wonderful. I usually use 8. Sometimes if they're small eggs, you can use 9 eggs. 8 to 9 eggs, a third of a cup of milk or just some water, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt and black pepper. And what you want to do is just mix all that up, beat them together so that the yolks and the whites are all mixed together. And then you can add in different things. So something your kids can do is help you make these. So they can make ones that have toppings or ingredients that they like. So the different things you can add in, it's sort of endless really, but chopped spinach is really great, green onions, broccoli, little small pieces of broccoli or cauliflower, little tomatoes chopped. You can add different cheeses, so cheddar, feta, mozzarella, whatever kinds you have on hand. Little pieces of peppers. If you like peppers, you can put in chunks of avocado or ham or bacon pieces, or even those, the little pepperettes or the turkey bites. You could add in little chunks of those. That's really, really fun. Yeah, so what you want to do is get your muffin tin out, heat your oven to 400. You can either grease your muffin tin or use those parchment muffin cups, or you can buy the silicone ones. I've seen them at the dollar store or like Canadian Tire or Walmart, and you know, you can reuse them. They're really great. Everything, even muffins, or the egg bites, they just pop out. Whereas if you're just greasing the muffin tin, you know, sometimes the um the non-stick wears off and then they just kind of stick to the bottom. So the silicone ones I love the best, but whatever you have on hand. So you want to beat your eggs together, mix in your milk or your water or non-dairy milk, salt and pepper, and then pour the egg mixture into the muffin cups till they're about 3/4 fill. And then add your additions. So you could do some with just, if your kids just like ham and cheese, or you could add some that have um, more flavors like the peppers and the onions and things like that. So everyone could make 3 or 4 of their own. So it's kind of a fun activity with your kids. And then you want to, once everything's been placed in, I usually leave the cheese till last and then pop it on top. I would grate the cheese if you're using cheddar cheese, or chop up the feta cheese into chunks. And they're really delicious. And then you just have to cook them for 20 to 25 minutes until they're set in the middle. And you can tell by touching them, there's no liquid coming out, then they're done. So eggs are like a whole food in and of themselves. It's just they're a superfood actually, and they have a lot of protein, fat, vitamins like vitamin A for your eyesight, vitamin B for energy, and all kinds of other things that I won't get into now, and antioxidants for inflammation, and which also helps your immune system. So, and they help to keep you satiated for a longer period of time because they're full of protein. All right, so we're going to switch up and get into the salad section of the presentation. So once again, take pictures of these recipes so you can kind of have them on your phone when you need them. So this is a strawberry blueberry salad. So a nice spring, I don't know, filling but satiating salad. Um, and it has some walnuts. So obviously if you're nut free, you know, ditch the walnuts, change it around however you want to change it. But you know, just need some butter, roughly chopped walnuts, some brown sugar, lettuce, and some strawberries. You can cut them into halves or quarters depending on, you know, your taste when you're eating a salad. If you don't like too many chunks, cut them smaller. A cup of blueberries, and you can use goat cheese or feta cheese. But if you only have cheddar cheese on hand or mozzarella, use that. It's okay. Some red onion if you like red onion. You could change that to green onions if you'd prefer. And then a quarter of a cup of fresh basil leaves. Those are optional. That's kind of a stronger flavor. And then it's a really fun way to make a nice light dressing. And this dressing you could use on other salads too. So it's a half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, honey, 2 teaspoons of honey, and then 1.5 tablespoons of red wine vinegar or lemon juice. You can interchange those ones. And 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So you want to wash anything you're using, you want to wash it because, you know, it's traveled, it's been in all kinds of people's hands when, you know, it's at the store. So just give everything a wash, anything that's fresh. Wash the berries well and slice them into whatever shapes you want. For the candied walnuts, you can cook them in a small pan over a medium to low heat. You want to add your butter and your nuts and your brown sugar and toss them with a spoon for about 3 minutes until they're fragrant. Just keep by the stove because nuts and sugar can burn very quickly, and put them aside and let them cool. And then add all your other ingredients for your dressing. You can use a jar, or, you know, sometimes you buy dressings and you have an extra bottle that's cleaned out. You could use that and shake it well to emulsify the oil and the other liquids. And then your large bowl, add your lettuce and half of each ingredient, including your walnuts and some dressing, and toss them well with tongs, and then arrange on a platter or a small bowl and sprinkle with the remaining ingredients, and another drizzle of dressing. Or you can keep it dressing free. If some people don't like dressing, you can keep it dressing free, and people can dress their own salad themselves. Now, kids might not like this, but you know, it's more for you, the mum. And this is a really delicious Greek salad recipe. I won't go through all the ingredients, but we'll just talk about it a little bit and you can take pictures. But basically, it's a great pasta salad, so you could have it with, pair it with meats or have it alone by itself. For lunch, you could have it by itself. You could add chicken or whatever meat you wanted to. Lamb goes really well with Greek um, recipes, but obviously you can add whatever you like. So it's a lemon olive oil dressing. So that has parsley and oregano as an optional, but it just gives that more flavorful with the oregano. You can use any pasta you like. It's really good with rotini pasta, like the curly one, or the penne, which is more like the tubular one. Whatever you have on hand, though, like if you have the shell pasta, if you're gluten free, you can use a gluten free pasta. Just remember not to overcook it. Um, this calls for red onion, but you could use green onion, or if you don't like onions, leave them out. It changes the flavor a little bit. And there's red peppers, cherry tomatoes, crumbled feta, but like I say, you could use whatever cheese you have on hand, cucumber, and parsley. If you don't love the parsley flavor, you could leave it out or put just a little of the dried parsley, like a quarter of a teaspoon of dried parsley in it. Or like I say, leave it out. So it's really easy to make. You cook your pasta, you put your dressing together, and then combine and your vegetables and combine everything together just before serving. And then on the Greek flavor, I made this the other day for our high school mums for lunch. It's a Greek chicken marinade, super easy, really bold flavor. You can make it marinate it ahead of time. Just a little warning though that with the lemon, it contains lemon juice, so you don't want to do it for too long because it makes the meat chewy if you're using like a chicken breast. If you're using more of like this one, it's very what's the word? Very easy to use whatever chicken you have on hand. So you could use chicken breast or chicken thighs, bone in. Just remember that bone in will take a bit longer to cook. So this one has a lot garlic, dried oregano, paprika. It calls for fresh thyme, but it's not always easy to find. You can use, like I say, a quarter of a teaspoon of dried thyme, and that's fine. And then this also calls for chopped flat leaf parsley, but if all you have is curly parsley, or if you have dried parsley, just use a little bit just for flavoring, like maybe this calls for 2 tablespoons. You could use a teaspoon of the dried parsley leaves and just kind of crush them up. Calls for olive oil, lemon zested. So zested means with your grater, the smaller part, not the part where you grate cheese or shred cheese, the other side that's kind of smaller, you can zest the outside of the lemon. I would do that first before you take the juice out because it's really floppy and it's too hard to shred. So you just want to get the yellow parts off. So you know, it takes a little bit of work, but just watch your knuckles or your fingers so that you don't get cut by the grater. So you want to zest it so to get the yellow bits off, and then also juice it. So you just cut it in half and either squeeze all the juice out, take out all the pits, and then you can also use a juicer, like at the dollar store, you can find the little containers that have the little nubby bit that sticks up that you squeeze the half of the lemon onto. And then it's got salt and black pepper to taste. And then you want 1.5 to 2 pounds of chicken. You can also have this recipe if that's too much, or you could cook it all and freeze it as well. And yeah, so you make the marinade, put all that together, add the chicken to the marinade, and just kind of toss it, make sure it coats really well. You can cover and refrigerate it for 2 to 8 hours. I wouldn't go longer than that, like I said. You can either grill it if you have a grill, or you can bake it in the oven. So for grilling, it says 5 minutes per side until your chicken reaches an internal temperature of 165 Fahrenheit. That's a food safe temperature. If you're using bone-in, you would do longer. And what I did was you have the chicken breasts, they're quite thick. So what I did is I cut them in half. So then you're kind of extending your meal as well. So you don't quite need as many, but you can, like I say, freeze them or have them as leftovers. And then they cook faster when they're a chicken breast cut in half. Obviously, if it's bone-in, you can't do that. So you would just be careful to cook it for longer. For baking, you just need to preheat your oven to 400 and and then it's and then if they're whole breast, add 10 to 15 more minutes of cooking time, and make sure that it's no longer pink inside and it's at 165 Fahrenheit. A good thing to get, and they're a little bit pricey. I think the dollar store you can find them too is you can get the little it's just like a skewer almost, and it has a little button on top and it'll tell you what the temperature of things are, if you're a little nervous about that. So with the baking, you can, if you don't have time to marinate it, you can pop it in the marinade and cover it for like, you to cook it, sorry, you cover it with foil for 10 minutes in a hot oven, and then you take the foil off after 10 minutes, and then keep cooking it till it's fully cooked. So I think I cooked ours for about 25 minutes. And everything was bubbling, and I checked the temperature and everything was good. So you want to take it out of the oven and let it rest for 5 minutes, and then it comes to even higher temperature. You can serve it with like a warmed pita bread if you like pita bread. You could do rice or potatoes. You can add it with a Greek salad, or just plain pasta and sauce, whatever your family likes. And if you're short on time, you can just marinate it for 30 minutes on the counter. It still will have a vibrant flavor. It won't be as flavorful, but if it's a quick turnaround and you're busy, well, let's face it, when you're a parent, you're busy all the time, then you'll be able to just get the meal ready very quickly. And then another thing that goes really well with these kind of Greek flavored meals is a tzatziki sauce. So I thought I'd put in a recipe for that. You can obviously buy it at the store, but it's a fairly easy thing to make. And it's also great, like if you have little ones who like to dip, this is a really great way to give them a little bit of protein, some good nutrition, but they're having fun with dipping their vegetables. So it's just a cup of plain Greek yogurt. And Greek yogurt can be used as an alternative to sour cream as well, on a side note. And then it's a 3/4 of a cup of peeled, finely diced English cucumbers. Yeah, and peeling's important because otherwise, it's really hard to chew. You don't want the tough skin on that. And then a tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice, some minced fresh dill. If you don't have fresh dill, you can use dried dill, and just use like I'd say half a teaspoon for every tablespoon, and a teaspoon of liquid honey. If you're giving it to a child under 1, I wouldn't use honey because it has a bacteria that's not safe for them. So I would use 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. And then it calls for a teaspoon of minced garlic. If you don't have minced garlic, you could also use 1/4 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then 1/4 of a teaspoon of sea salt and each of ground pepper and sea salt. You want to combine all your ingredients and cover and refrigerate. It's nice served cold, but it's a really easy recipe. So even if you're not making all the other things, it's really good. It's really good on the pita with the chicken, and then paired with a Greek salad, you can make little pita, stuffed pitas. It's really yummy. And another recipe that's really fun in the spring, well, anytime, but spring, summer, is fresh spring rolls. And these ones, we have a peanut sauce recipe as well. So it's 2 ounces of rice vermicelli noodles. You can use white or brown. Brown obviously gives you more fiber and is better for you. A teaspoon of sesame oil, a sprinkling of salt, and then a cup of butter lettuce, ribs removed because it gets too crunchy otherwise. But you can use other types of lettuce. Just take I call them the bones out of the middle. And then it's a cup of very thinly sliced red cabbage. So, and then 2 medium carrots peeled and cut into matchsticks. So little tiny thin strips so that, when you're biting into it, it's not quite as hard to chew. A small cucumber, thinly sliced. You can add jalapenos if you like. Those are totally optional, but you want to remove the ribs and seeds and thinly slice them. A quarter of a cup of roughly chopped fresh cilantro. Now, cilantro's an acquired taste for some, and others it tastes like soap. So, you can add that if you want to. It is delicious in my opinion, but other people it tastes like soap. So, just depends on your audience or your family. Also calls for a quarter of a cup of roughly chopped fresh mint. And 8 sheets of rice paper. So, at the store you can buy them. They're just a big round package, and they're kind of a little bit fragile as well. So, you want to make sure it's a full sheet when you're getting those ready, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The peanut sauce is super easy. You can use peanut butter. Obviously, if you're nut free, you can still use sun butter, which is is safe for those with a nut allergy, and it still has that nutty flavor, which is great. Calls for rice vinegar, soy sauce. Obviously, if you're gluten-free, you would use the alternative, which is tamari. Tastes exactly like soy sauce. It's just safe. 2 tablespoons of honey or maple syrup, toasted sesame oil, cloves of garlic, minced, and then you need 2 to 3 tablespoons of water or as needed. That's more for when you're rolling. So these are a bit of work, but they're actually really delicious. So they're worth the time if you have it to make them. And also you can have your kids help you. So to make your spring rolls, you want to bring a pot of water to boil. Cook your vermicelli noodles just until they're al dente, but that means kind of just a little bit of a chew to them. And also look at the package directions. And then drain and rinse them under cool water. That gets a lot of the starch out of them. And then put them back in the pot and make sure it's off the heating ring. And then toss the noodles with some sesame oil, the salt, and set aside. And then fill a shallow pan, like you can use a round cake pan, works really good. But if you don't have that, just a chopping board. No, not a chopping board, like I don't know, like a lasagna pan, or you can get those tinfoil pans and pop some water in there, an inch of water, and then fold a lint-free tea towel in half and place it next to the dish. So make sure your prepared fillings are within reach, so everything's all ready to go. Combine your green onion, cilantro, mint in a small bowl and stir it up so that they're all mixed evenly. Place one of your rice papers, so one of your circles, in the water and let it rest about 20 seconds. You don't want to go too long. You have to kind of go by feel and then wait till the sheet's pliable. So pliable but not super floppy. Once it gets floppy, it all sticks together and then you kind of have to start again. It's really hard to peel them undone once they've meshed together. So then once it's pliable, lay it on the flat towel. Leave about an inch to open, an inch around the edges where you're not covering it with your ingredients. Cover the lower third of, it's kind of like doing the sushi rolling actually. Cover the lower third of the paper, the one closest to you, with a few pieces of your lettuce, followed by your handful of rice noodles, like a little bit of everything, some cabbage, some carrots, some cucumber, some jalapenos if you're using, and sprinkle them generously with your herb mix. And that way, you get all those flavors in there. You want to fold the lower edge up over the fillings, and rolling it up until the fillings completely closed, and give it a little squeeze, and then fold over the short sides on the edges, kind of like making a burrito too. And then roll it up, and you can use a little bit of olive oil or any kind of oil to kind of seal that last lip on top. And then you just want to keep repeat making all your rolls. To make your peanut sauce before I get into the peanut sauce, you want to keep it fresh so that they don't dry out. You can cover them with plastic wrap, or what I also like to do is get some paper towel and rinse it under water and then wring it out, and so it's not dripping water, and then lay it over top, and that will keep them fresh. It also works for sandwiches too, if you're ever making sandwiches and you want to keep them fresh. Okay, so to make the peanut sauce in a small bowl, whisk together your peanut butter, your rice vinegar, your tamari or your soy sauce, your honey or maple syrup, your sesame oil, and your garlic, and whisk in your 2 to 3 tablespoons of water and make it super creamy, but like a dippable kind of texture. If it's too runny, you can add more peanut butter or nut butter. And if it's too thick, you can add a little bit more water. Just kind of go by feel with that. And serve the spring rolls with the peanut sauce. You can also have like a meat dish on the side. You can have them you can eat them any time of day, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And then to slice them, you want to wet your knife, use a sharp knife, and cut them in half. If you use a dry knife, they'll kind of stick and then can tend to fall apart. So if you're making it gluten-free, you want to use gluten-free vermicelli noodles. The rice wraps are already gluten-free, and like I said, the tamari, which is a gluten-free soy sauce. If you want to make it vegan, use maple syrup instead of honey. To make it peanut-free, you can use almond or cashew butter. If you're completely nut-free, use your sunflower seed butter. And then if you're preparing them in advance, you can do that several hours up to a day in advance, but store them in an airtight container. And I also like to put that wet paper towel over top as well, just to keep them fresh, because they do tend to dry out. All right, so another really fun recipe I found this month was these are called busy weeknight lasagna roll-ups. So just a fun way to eat lasagna that's a little different. These ones are meat-free. Obviously, you could make them with meat in them. These ones are really nutritious as well because we're adding in some pumpkin into the filling, makes it more nutritious, and I took this from the book, Kids Won't Be Suspicious. So for your fussy eaters, as long as you're not doing the filling in front of them, they will never know. And you can prepare the filling a day in advance, to make meal prep easier, busy parents and all that. So it calls for 2 cups of ricotta cheese, a package of frozen chopped spinach, thawed and squeezed dry, or you could just chop up your own fresh spinach. I would maybe use 2 cups of that. Obviously, if your little ones don't like spinach, that might be tricky. So I'll leave that to you. And then a 1/2 cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. You can use also the crumbled kind as well. Sometimes the grated can be a little more pricey and harder to find. And then a 1/2 cup of canned pure pumpkin. Make sure you don't buy the pumpkin pie filling because that's got spices in it that they will definitely be suspicious. And then an egg, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, freshly ground pepper, a pinch of nutmeg, and then you'll need 12 lasagna noodles. You can use whole wheat or a plain. Whole wheat obviously gives you more fiber. A jar of marinara or like a red pasta sauce, and a 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. And so to make the filling, you want to combine your ingredients for the filling, the ricotta, the spinach, the parmesan, the pumpkin, the egg, all the things, and then cover and refrigerate until it's ready to use. You can do it all at the same time, or like I said, prepare ahead of time. And then preheat your oven to 375 Fahrenheit. Spray a cooking dish, 9 by 13 works really well. Put a little bit of oil on it. So I like to just dab, some oil on a paper towel and kind of rub it around the dish, or you can use the Pam spray as well. And in a pot of water, cook your lasagna noodles according to the package directions, but don't cook them till they're really done because then they'll rip when you're rolling and all your filling's going to fall out. So you want them a little bit, even more than al dente. So drain and rinse them with cold water so that they don't stick together because, if you just drain them in a sieve afterwards, they do stick together without the cold water. So once you've got your, and this is a great thing for the kids to help with, by the way, they can help with spreading the ingredients and rolling the ingredients. So spread 3/4 cup of your sauce over the bottom of the dish before you start assembling them. To assemble your roll-ups, you want to evenly spread 1/4 to 1/3 cup of filling over one side of each of the cooked noodle, and then spoon a tablespoon of the marinara sauce down the center over the filling, and then roll them up seam side down. So you roll them, and then the seam at the very end, put it down on the dish so that they're cooking and they won't fall apart. And then cover loosely with foil and bake for 25 minutes. And then uncover, so you want them to kind of cook a little bit more for 10 more minutes. You could sprinkle a little cheese on top if you wanted to do that at that point as well. That's really fun. And like I said, this is a really fun activity for kids if they're old enough to help. It's a really great way to get your children involved in not just where your food comes from, but how things are put together. And it's really good for their math skills later on when they're a little bit older. But, starting them young, it's kind of like reading to your children. The more you do it, the more they will learn and their brains will grow. So next is a couple of recipes that is more fun for toddlers, but also good for us mums. So these are I'm not sure if you've seen the book Food to Grow On. Anyone who's been with the ABC program has been given one of these books. It's written by dietitians, and it's specifically for pregnancy and up to toddlers, feeding and all kinds of suggestions, recipes, information it's gold. So this is a crispy baked chicken fingers, super easy to make. It requires an egg, 3 tablespoons of whole grain flour. If you don't have whole grain flour, obviously you can use what you have. Regular flour works just as well. 1/2 cup of whole grain panko, the crunchy breadcrumbs, or you can make your own breadcrumbs. Like if you have a blender, you could just toast your bread and then pop, you want to toast it really well and pop it in the blender, and you can make your own breadcrumbs if you don't have panko or breadcrumbs on hand. 3 tablespoons of grated Parmesan cheese, but you can also use the crumbled version. 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, pinch of salt and pepper, and then 2 chicken breasts cut into strips. Obviously, if there's a lot of you in your family, you can double, triple, whatever amount you want to make. So preheat your oven to 400 Fahrenheit, line your baking sheet with parchment, just helps with cleanup, and they don't stick as much and cook really well. In a small bowl, beat your egg, and then on a large plate, combine your breadcrumbs, your Parmesan, your garlic powder, salt and pepper, and any herbs if you're using, and just kind of toss it so it's evenly mixed. You could also do that in a bowl and then transfer it to a plate. And then one at a time, dip the chicken strips into the flour, then into the egg, then into the breadcrumbs mixture to coat, and then place on the prepared baking sheet and bake for 12 to 15 minutes, turning once halfway. So in about 6 or 7 minutes, turn it over, and then it cooks more evenly. And once again, you want to cook it till it's no longer pink in the middle, or the temperature is 165 Fahrenheit. And then serve with your favorite dipping sauce. So this might even be good with the tzatziki if you've made that the day before and you have that. Also, like a plum sauce is good, or a spicy chili sauce. And chicken fingers are only good as the accompaniment. So I have a baked French fries, oven French fries recipe as well. And these cook a little bit lower of a temperature, but if you have room in your oven, you can cook them side by side. You would just have to, if you kept the temperature at 375 instead of 400 for the chicken, you could just cook the chicken a little bit longer. So yeah, so it's 4 large baking potatoes. So russet is a really good baking potato, but like I say, use what you have. And 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil and a tablespoon of salt or seasoned salt. A tablespoon seems like quite a lot, but you can just use your judgment on that. I usually try a little bit first, and then if you need more, you can always add. You can't take away. You can also use, if you like sweet potato fries, you can also make those as well. They tend to cook a little bit faster and are a little bit not as crispy, but super yummy and super nutritious. You could do some of each, even if you don't have children who are picky with the sweet potatoes like I did. So once again, preheat your oven to 375. Wash your potatoes. Leave the skin on for extra fiber, but if you have picky children who don't like the peel, you peel it off as well. Let your potatoes soak in cold water in the sink or in a bowl for 30 minutes, and then take them out of the water and dry really well. Pop them in a bowl and toss with oil and your seasonings. Spread them on an even single layer of parchment on a pan and bake for 20 minutes. I would give them a toss after 10 minutes, just turn them over so that they're evenly cooked. And then it says to turn your oven up to 425 and cook until golden, about 20 to 25 minutes more. Now that depends on how thick you're making or thin you're making them or thick. So the thinner, the less time they'll take to cook. And probably by this time your chicken, if you're doing it at the same time, would only need like 5 more minutes after the first 20 minutes of baking. So play that by ear. I like to see if they're cooked inside using a fork, and if the potato comes out easily, then it's done. So, use your judgment there. All right, so we're just moving on to some sweeter treats here. We have our in-person classes the first Friday of the month, and last month we made these oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. So we did some chocolate chip and some raisin. We used whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour. Obviously you need baking soda, salt, ground cinnamon, oatmeal flakes, the larger flakes, and we used butter, or you can use non-hydrogenated margarine, softened, brown sugar, regular granulated sugar, a beaten egg, some milk, vanilla extract, and you can use whatever chocolate chips you have on hand. We use semi-sweet, but sometimes you can get milk chocolate ones, or you can get dairy-free ones. The Enjoy Life brand are dairy-free, and they're just as delicious. And then you can use a half a cup of raisins or chopped walnuts. So you can make a little bit of a variety. So you can make the standard recipe and then add your different accompaniments to it. So preheat your oven to 375 and line your baking sheet with parchment paper or a non-stick cooking spray. In your large bowl, you combine your flours, your baking soda, salt, cinnamon, oatmeal, and stir well to combine. You don't want to overstir, but you want to make sure all the dry ingredients are mixed together. In a second bowl, combine your butter or your margarine, your sugars, your egg, your milk, and vanilla. So you're wetting more of your wet ingredients. Well, not really wet because the sugar's not wet, but anyway, add your dry ingredients to the wet mixture, or depending on the bowl size, whichever way works for you, and stir until that's just combined. And fold in your chocolate chips or raisins. So this is the point where you would split the mix up and do some raisins and some chocolate chip, or some nuts, whatever you want. Drop your round spoonfuls of batter onto your baking sheet and flatten with a back of a fork or spoon, and then bake about 10 minutes until the edges turn golden. You want to cool them for about 5 minutes, just so that they have time to harden, because if you take them off the pan too quickly, they'll be soft and floppy, and then they tend to break into crumbs. So give those a try. It makes about 2 dozen cookies, and super delicious, really great for kids' lunches or a little snack time. Have those with some yogurt, a little bit of protein, and really delicious. This is a recipe I've shared before. You buy those chocolate puddings that you get at the store, but they're full of stuff that's not really good for kids or for people in general. But this is a really nutritious way to get some good fats and good nutrition into your kids, but it's dressed up as a treat. So it's a chocolate avocado pudding. So you want to have 4 ripe avocados, so quite soft. A half a cup of milk of choice. So if you're dairy intolerant, it really is really good with coconut milk. So it has that little coconutty flavor. But if you don't like that, all the other milks work as well. A half a cup of maple syrup, half a cup of cocoa powder, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So you want to pop all your ingredients into a blender or a food processor and process until smooth and creamy. And add more milk if you need to get more consistency, or if it's too thin, then you want to add a little bit more avocado to thicken it up. It's super yummy as a dip for like strawberries or bananas. And you can top it with whipped cream and chocolate shavings to make it even more special. You also can make it into a little dessert. What I've done in the past is, those little muffin containers, like the little baby ones. I've just processed up either some cookie crumbs with a little bit of butter and a little bit of sugar, and pressed that into the bottom of the pan, and then put the avocado pudding on top. And it makes little pucks of kind of like a little mini cheesecake. You can also do it make a nut base, like a handful of nuts. If you have a really good blender, and a little bit of butter and sugar or maple syrup, just a little bit to make it sweet. And then you can grind those up and press those into the bottom and add the avocado pudding on top, and then freeze it. And then they turn into little pucks, and then you can pop them in a baggie or a container, so that, when you get that little chocolate craving, which I'm a bit of a chocoholic, not going to lie, you can grab one of those, and they're like bite-sized, nice and cold, and just really super yummy, but really nutritious. Like, avocados are so good for you. But once again, you don't want to give this pudding too later in the day because of the cocoa powder. If your child has trouble sleeping, there's a little bit of caffeine in cocoa as well. So just be mindful of that. And this is a really fun bark. I shared it last month, but I didn't have many watching. So I just wanted to share it again, especially now that, strawberries and blueberries are a bit more abundant this time of year. It's a super easy recipe. 2 cups of plain yogurt, 3 tablespoons of maple syrup or honey, as long as your child's not under 1, a half a teaspoon of lemon juice, 2 cups of berries of choice. So you could use any kind of berries. This one's strawberries and blueberries, but there's blackberries, there's all kinds of berries out there that you can, raspberries. The granola is optional. And if you're using whole strawberries, you want to chop them into smaller pieces. And yeah, so basically you just line your baking sheet with wax paper or parchment paper and set aside. Mix up your yogurt, maple syrup or honey, vanilla, lemon juice, and whisk until it's all combined. So this is a very quick activity and fun to do with your kids. Transfer your yogurt mixture to your baking sheet and spread it evenly, and then top it with your berries or your granola, whatever you're using, and freeze for 2 to 3 hours until it's firm. And then you can just break it up into pieces. You could transfer it into a container or a baggie. Really great snack idea for little ones. Obviously, if they don't like the crunch, ditch the granola, but super, super yummy. So give that a try. And then I just have a fun little kid recipe, not edible. So this is a homemade bubble recipe that's really fun to make this time of year, once the weather gets warmer. It's a half a cup of sugar, 4 cups of warm water, and a half a cup of Blue Dawn dish soap. Add the sugar and water together and whisk it until it dissolves. Whisk in the Dawn dish soap and let it sit for a few hours or overnight. And you could also, if you don't have the bubble wands, you can make your own wand with a skewer and a pipe cleaner. In the picture here, that's what they've done. And then you can make it different sizes. You can put your different pipe cleaners. I think you can get those at the dollar store. Same with the skewers, and you can make bigger bubbles as well. So it's just a fun activity for the kids, and it also helps to teach them some math skills and just, how to make things that are fun, that don't cost a lot of money. And then I have a fun coconut body scrub recipe, sorry, for you moms, just as something as a little treat for yourself. So it calls for 2 cups of brown sugar, a cup of solid but soft coconut oil, or you can also use avocado or jojoba oil. Obviously, coconut oil or avocado oil you can find at the grocery store. Jojoba oil is a little bit more pricey, usually at a natural health food store. Extra additions can be like a vanilla extract or any essential oils that you like. So you want to whip together the sugar, the oil, and add your extra additions like your essential oil or your vanilla extract until it's creamy. You can use a food processor or a blender. You don't want to process too long because then maybe the oil might separate. And if that happens, put it in the freezer for a few minutes to solidify and mix again. So store in an airtight container, like jars or like a plastic container, lasts for weeks, maybe even months. So that's just a little recipe for you mums, something to pamper yourself with. Really good to slough off that dry skin, especially from winter time. And just to say that it's also not edible. So please don't let little ones near that as well. All right, we've come to the end. So just to confirm that you've watched this workshop today, you can message me either by text or email. My information's at the bottom. I'm Justine again. So I just want to know, did you learn anything today that was helpful? Was there any recipe that you think you might try for you or your family? Or both. And what are some ideas of things you'd like to learn in the future? So I'll be doing these once a month. And also we have in-person classes. The first Friday of every month, we have childcare available and transportation if you'd like to join us. It's sort of first come, first serve, so there's limited space, but you can always message me if you'd like to join us. The next one is next Friday, although I think our space is filled for next Friday. And then the one in July will be Friday, July 11th, and it will actually be for children. So mums can come and help, but it'll be for kids. It's like a kids cooking club. We haven't hashed out all the details yet, but if you'd like to join that and get on the list, because that will fill up fast, let me know. That's Friday, July 11th from 10 till 12. And we also have childcare for other little ones and transportation available. But like I say, it fills up very fast. So thank you for watching today. Just remember that we are on social media. If you want to keep in touch with what's happening, we have our website, roseofsharon.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and also our website that all the activities are posted on is parentsconnect.ca. So you can go onto the calendar and see what's available, and it also has who to contact if you want to join in any programs. So thank you again for watching today, and I look forward to hearing from you and hearing how if this benefited you in any way. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful month, and reach out if you have any questions. Take care, everyone.